Okay, good evening, good afternoon. Hello, hello. Is it? We're starting. We're starting. What I'd like to think about, the Megillat Esther is a wonderful book, and no matter how many times we read the Megillah again and again every year, it's still interesting. It's still interesting. Look, one thing that's interesting about the Megillah is that it tells the story of a variety of people. It tells the story of Mordechai, he's a person, of Esther, she's certainly a person, of Haman. Each one has a different story, and then there's the interlocking story, how they kind of meet up with each other. What I'd like to think about with you tonight, or this afternoon, this is afternoon, right? I'd like to think about who is the real hero, if there is such a person, of Megillat Esther. And I think that this is clearly stated in the 4th chapter of the Megillah, and we'll try to learn that 4th chapter together, right? The 4th chapter of Megillat Esther, which, as you know, is written in Hebrew with a bunch of Persian words interspiced in order to make us feel that it's real. It's the real McCoy. Everything all right? No problem? Okay, great. So look at the first thing on the sheet. If you have a sheet, the first part is chapter Dalet, Perek Dalet. Mordechai yada et kol asher na'asa vayikra Mordechai begadav vayilbash sak va'efer vayetze b'toch ha'ir vayizak za'aka gdola mara. Here is a pasuk. The pasuk has a lot of sections to it. Let's look at each of the sections and see if we understand them. Mordechai yada. Mordechai yada. He knew something. He understood something. Yada is a word that means, it could mean he knew in a kind of lighthearted way. He just knew that Haman and Achashverosh were going to kill, or were planning on killing, the Jewish population. Or Mordechai yada means that he knew more than that. He knew more than what meets the eye. He was, after all, a great Torah scholar, the person who educated Hadassah, the Hebrew name of Esther. He educated her. He was her mentor. He was the person who had a leadership position amongst the Jews. He spoke languages and understood a variety of things. And we know that that the people who learned languages were the leaders of the people. Everything was a professional. If Mordechai learned how to speak the language of the place, it was because he was responsible for the community. So hu yada et asher kol asher na'asa. He knew everything that was going to take. Now, if you look at the Rashi, you see the Rashi is printed under that paragraph. Mordechai yada. Ba'al hachalom amar lo she'eskimu elyonim lekach. Lefi שהשתחוו לצלם בימי נבוכדנצר ושנהגו מסעודות אחשוורוש. This is really a kind of a distressing statement that it's kind of a distressing statement that he makes, that Rashi makes. But let's look at the words in the Rashi. Ba'al hachalom. There was a dream that he had. In other versions of the Rashi, it mentions an angel who came to him in a dream. And what did the angel say to him? Amar lo, said to Mordechai, Sheskimu ha'elyonim lekach. You imagine that in heaven they had agreed with Haman and Achashverosh, that they knew that the Jews, Mordechai knew that the Jews deserved to be punished at that time. Now, why did they deserve to be punished? Why? They bowed down to this idol that was made in the days of Nebuchadnezzar. Remember, Nebuchadnezzar was the king of Babylon. Babylon was the nation that conquered the Jews. Babylon conquered the Jews and exiled them. And that was in 586 BCE, right? The exile of the Jews into Babylon. And in Bavel, the Jews were oppressed. They wanted them to act out serving the idols of Babylon. After all, the idols, the gods of Babylon, had conquered the idols of the Jews. And so the Jews felt apparently that they had no choice. And so they bowed down to the idol. That was in the time of Nebuchadnezzar. Nehenu miseudat Achashverosh. Achashverosh was a king of Persia. You understand that in 535 BCE, the Persians conquered the Babylonians. It was like a kind of an interchange. The whole empire passed from Babylonia to Persia. The difference between Babylonia and Persia is that in Babylonia they spoke one language, Babylonian, and in Persia they spoke a different language, Persian. So the Persian language became the dominant language. And you know that at the beginning of the Megillah it says, Bishnat Shalosh L'Malcho, on the third year of Achashverosh's kingship. Achashverosh was a Persian, right? You remember? He's a Persian. On the third year of his kingship, he made a party. 7 days in Shushan for all the residents in Shushan. All the residents include the Jewish residents. There were also Jews who came, and they came to the party. They said, if we don't come to the party that Achashverosh makes, we're going to really be in trouble. So who knows what they served at that party? It probably wasn't the hechsher, the badats, and it probably the wine was probably not ayayay, but ayayay. And so they had the food was there and the wine was there, and who knows what happened to the Jews who attended the party. So what did the angel whispering in Mordechai's ear say, according to Rashi? It's really the Jews are really in trouble because Haman and Achashverosh, they're really punishing the Jews, or they want to punish the Jews for their transgressions, for the transgressions of the Jews. In the time of Nebuchadnezzar, they bowed down to the idol. In the time of Achashverosh, they went to his party, which was, as we said, not catered by the Badats, and therefore they deserve to be punished. So when Rashi says, the Pasuk, look back at the Pasuk, it says, Mordechai Yada. What did he know? Well, he was a kind of a prophet. And he knew more than other people. And he knew that this was not a simple matter. This decision that they made, they wouldn't be able to bribe Achashverosh and Haman and try to stay the execution. They wouldn't be able to do that. And why not? According to Rashi, why wouldn't they be able to bribe Haman and Achashverosh? They will give you twice as much money not to unleash these forces against us. Because Mordechai knew that it was the responsibility of Am Yisrael itself. We were bringing this terrible danger down upon us. It was going to affect us. So that was Mordechai Yadat Kol Asher Na'asa. Doesn't say what Haman and Achashverosh thought, but Kol Asher Na'asa. Kol Asher Na'asa means including the fact that Bashamayim, that in heaven, the decision had been rendered that the Jews should be punished. That's the first phrase. Vayikra Mordechai et begadav. Vayikra Mordechai et begadav. We understand. Usually, you rend your garments after it happens. That's a sign of mourning. It's not a sign of preparation for war. I mean, that's ridiculous. What did we read this God? But since Mordechai, according to Rashi, knew that this was going to happen, that there was no choice, so he rent his garment. He started the mourning period right away, immediately. Vayikra Mordechai begadav, Then vayelbash sak va'efer. I mean, this was something he wore sackcloth and dirt. He covered himself with dust. He went into the middle of the city. He was calling attention to himself. What was he saying? What was Mordechai saying? That all of the Jews who were collectively responsible for what was happening because of what they did at the time of Nebuchadnezzar, right? The king of Babylon. And what they did at the time of Achashverosh, the king in Persia. Because of what they did, this was going to happen. So he went into the middle of the city and he says, what you should do is imitate me. Be like me. Go into mourning. Mourning is somehow connected also to doing tshuva, to repenting. I mean, mourning is because you realize, the real reason you're mourning is that you realize that things are not as they should be, as they might be, and that there's an aspect of punishment in what goes on in the world. And so, right? That's the scene is set. Here is Mordechai, the most important Jew in the city and in the country, and he's rending his clothes and he's mourning and he's screaming. And I suppose the people in Shushan don't know exactly what it is he's doing, but we know. We know because we learned Rashi. Without Rashi, we would also have difficulty. V'yavo ad lifnei shar hamelech, and Mordechai came to the gate of the palace of the king, Shar HaMelech. Gein lavo Shar HaMelech v'levusak, because you can't go in if you're wearing sackcloth. I mean, we know that. You know, if you go to visit a dignitary, you get dressed up. Even people who don't usually get dressed up, it's like everybody has this sort of idea that there's a fancy kind of set of clothing someplace in my closet, or when they call me to visit the president. Until then, it'll just stay in my closet. Ein lavo shar melech b'vusak. Pasuk Gimel. Ein lavo, I'm sorry. Rashi. Ein lavo in derech eretz lavo shar melech. Ein derech eretz. In other words, it's not the way of the world. It's not a halacha. It's not something that's written in the Torah. But Rashi wants to point out that there is such a thing. There's such a thing as derech eretz. You have to give in to the community values and community standards. That's an important thing. That's called derech eretz. Derech eretz. Derech eretz. It's something people use quite liberally, but what derech eretz means is the agreed position in the world. And the way you dress is part of the agreed position in the world. The amazing thing is that Jews came to Israel. All kinds of Jews came from Eastern Europe and Middle Europe. They came inappropriately dressed for life in the Middle East. Right? It was just not appropriate. So then the miracle happened. It's called air conditioning. And then you could wear whatever you wanted. So that was a wonderful day. It was a sign that God wanted us to be in Eretz Yisrael, right? Because you didn't have to change your clothes. Ein lavo, ein derech eretz lavo shal melech. Rashi says v'levus sak. Gimel, pasuk Gimel. Gimel. V'chol medina medina. Medina, the word medina is a tricky word. In modern Hebrew, it's a city. I mean, it's a country. It's a country where everybody follows the same rules. But in Mishnaic Hebrew, Medina is a city, just like that in Saudi Arabia there's a city called Medina, right? It means the city, the city. So Medina, B'chol Medina, every city, Mekom Shedra Melech V'dato Magia, Evel Gadol HaYehudim, V'tzom V'chiyu B'speit Tzak V'efe Yisrael Rabim. So everybody's imitating Mordechai. They all say, well, so if Mordechai's doing it, I better do it also. How can I avoid doing this? How can I avoid doing this? So he says, again, Pasuk Dalet, Vatavona, you see the words printed twice, that's called the Kriyuk Chtiv. We read it in the way it's vocalized. Vatavona, Narot Esther v'Sarisea v'Agidula. Though she had these girls with her who helped her, and her officers, v'Agidula, and they told her what's going on, but she went kind of a little berserk, as people are wont to do, but Ishlach Bigadim Lalbish et Mordechai Ulasir Sakomi Alav Lo Kibel. And so you see, she didn't see beyond what she saw. This is always a problem. She saw, what did she see? She see Mordechai. Mordechai is doing something that's going to embarrass her. That's going to embarrass the Jewish people. I mean, that's what she saw. I mean, somebody's running around and in a sackcloth in front of the Shar HaMelech, one of the gate of the king. He said, that's impossible. So she sent clothes, Labish and Mordechai, where she got these clothes from, but she had clothes, Labish and Mordechai, to get him dressed, and she sends him a message. She says, hey, maybe you forgot, you didn't get dressed this morning, or you went out of the house in a stupor. Here are some clothes and get dressed. And he said, no, you don't understand. This is the way I have to be dressed at this time. And so you see immediately in the first interaction between Mordechai and Esther, a sort of an interaction. The first interaction between Mordechai and Esther doesn't get it. She doesn't understand. She didn't stop for a minute and say, if Mordechai is acting in such a strange way, there must be a reason for it. No. She said, Mordechai's lost his mind. And I've got to do something in order to make sure that I am not affected by the fact that Mordechai lost his mind. Okay? V'lo kibel. Pasuk hey. V'tikra Esther lahatach. Tach is a kind of an officer. And she called the officer, Misarisei Amelech Asher Emid Lefanea, V'titzaveh Mordechai Ladat Baal Zeh V'amaz. So she realizes it's a little more serious than she thought. After all, she sent the clothing, and he said, no, I don't want any clothes. I don't want you to help me. I don't want you to give me anything. So she sent the officer. I mean, it looks more serious. It's not like just sending out a servant with clothing and saying to Mordechai, here, look, go get dressed. But she sent the Tach. The Tach is an officer, somebody who is close to her, and somebody who has some kind of authority. Maybe he wears special kind of clothing. He's recognizable. He's recognizable in the community. He's somebody. He's not nobody. And Vayetze, so she sent the Tach. She sent him to find out, is there some deeper meaning here, something that I'm missing out on? And so, Pasuk Vav, and so the Tach went out, as she said, into the street. I mean, it seems to be like an amazing thing. This Tach, whoever he was, he probably wasn't used to walking around alone in the streets, but he did it. Esther told him to do it, so he did it. Pasuk Zayin, Vayiged lo Mordechai et kol asher karahu v'et parashat haKesev asher amar Aman mishkol an gizei hamelech v'Yehudim l'Adam, and he told him what had happened. He knew that he was responsible to Esther, and he would go back and tell her what had happened, and he couldn't go. Mordechai couldn't go because he was Bursak. He was wearing this sackcloth. So he couldn't go into the castle. We don't hear that Esther volunteered to leave the castle and to come out in the street and talk to Mordechai. No. Pasuk Chet, Ktav Adat asher natan b'Shushan hashmitam, natan lo larot et Esther lagid la letzavot aleh lavo lamelech litchanen levakesh b'fadei alama. So here he has a clear vision. He has a clear vision. What's the clear vision that Mordechai has? Mordechai says, listen, this is what the future holds. You, Esther, have to go and ask the forgiveness of the king and compassion for the nation of Israel. So what did Mordechai think? So Mordechai said to himself, he knew that Esther had to be the queen of Persia for some purpose. We know that Esther became queen of Persia because she had no real identity. You remember that the king, that the first psukim in Megillat Esther, Vahi b'mei Achashverosh, Hu Achashverosh, Hamolech mehodav Kush. It happened in the days of Achashverosh. He is in fact Achashverosh, who was the king of 127 nations. B'shtat shalosh malcho, asa mishteh lekol sarav avodav. He made this big party. After 3 years of kingship passed, he made a party. Why did he make a party? Why did he make a party? To show that he was in charge, that he had control. I mean, control is a very difficult thing if you have 127 nations that you're trying to control. And what you're really trying to do is collect taxes. Each of these 127 nations were obliged to send tax money to Achashverosh. Achashverosh was the king of Persia, right? Just some years ago, we don't know exactly when. I don't know exactly who this Achashverosh is or when he was the king of Persia. We can guess, but we don't know. So just a few years before Achashverosh became king, the king was a king of Babylonia. And then the king of Babylonia was replaced. The first king of Persia was named, in English they call him Cyrus, and in Hebrew Koresh. Koresh was the first king of Persia. And Koresh allowed the Jews to go back to Yerushalayim and to start building the temple. Koresh. Now Achashverosh, again, let's go back to the first pasuk. Vahi b'mei Achashverosh hu Achashverosh. What's missing in the pasuk? What is not there? What should be there is not there. What? Lineage is good. Why did you say his father? You're right. He doesn't have his father's name. In fact, twice the pasuk doesn't have his father's name. So why doesn't the pasuk mention his father's name? Because he didn't have a father. What does that mean? What does that mean in the kingship business? It means that a king mentions his father if his father was a king. If his father was not a king, like a regular guy, then you don't mention him. You sort of like try to give the impression that you come from a family of kings and not from a family of usurpers. But Achashverosh came from a family of usurpers. He took over the throne, and therefore it took him 3 years to consolidate his kingship, to get the taxes going from all the different nations, and then he made a party. Then he made a party to emphasize the fact, in America today, or in Israel, they call it convention, but it's the same kind of thing. It's like a party that says, I'm in charge, whoever the I am is at that moment. So Achashverosh said, I am in charge. And the Megillah says, this is the Achashverosh who didn't have a father, because he usurped kingship from whoever preceded him. Now, he had a wife. His wife's name was Zeresh. I don't mean Zeresh, Vashti. Vashti. His wife's name was Vashti. Now, what's with Vashti? What's the story with Vashti? She's making a party, and he's making a party. What's the story with Vashti? So what's Vashti making a party for? I mean, I understand the men are here, the women are there. That's very noble. But what was the point? So there are those who have speculated, and it seems to me to be correct, or it certainly might be correct, that in those days the minhag was that if you usurped kingship, let's say the king before Achashverosh, his name was Schwartz, right? So if Achashverosh usurped kingship from Schwartz, as the Makavipatish is like, you hit the nail on the head and drive it into the wood, right? That's a Makavipatish. He would marry the previous king Schwartz's wife, whose name was Vashti. So when the king Achashverosh said, I want you to come and show everybody, like you listen to me, he went, I want you to come and show everybody that you're in my camp, that you're on my side, because the previous queen, who knows, she might have consorts and all kinds of soldiers and people and politicians who are still on her side, trying to make sure that Achashverosh would fall. So that's what Achashverosh wanted. He said, no, I want her to come up to the party. I want everybody to see who she was. So she rebelled. She said, no, I'm not coming. I'm not coming. I have my own party. I have my own people. I have my own thing going. So, of course, Achashverosh had no choice in that kind of way of thinking about things but to kill her. And then they made a competition to find a new queen, right? They made a competition, and Esther was chosen. Now, what were Esther's qualities? What was it about Esther that made her the perfect choice for Achashverosh? It apparently wasn't her beauty, because they worked on her for 6 months to make her look reasonable. I mean, that's a long time to apply makeup. 6 months. What other qualities did Esther have? Nobody knew who she was. You see, her real name was Hadassah. And as we know, Hadassah, that's a very fine Jewish name. But her given name, for the purposes of the competition, was Esther. Esther is like Jane Doe in Persia, because Esther is the name of one of the leading Persian gods, Ishtar. Ishtar. You imagine, Mordechai said to Esther, forget Hadassah, forget your family, forget me. You're Esther, Ishtar. You're Esther, and whoever asks you where you're from, tell them that you don't know, that you're an orphan, that you have no relatives, that no friends, but your name is Esther. Achashverosh says, perfect. That's what I need. I need a queen who doesn't have grassroots support, who's not going to rise up against me, who doesn't have a family, who doesn't have and so Esther was chosen. Esther was chosen. And who encouraged Esther to be chosen? Who encouraged her? Mordechai. And if Mordechai encouraged her, and we see that Mordechai had some sort of like Superman's knowledge, right? He was more knowledgeable than most people. He understood what was happening. So he meant what he understood was that here was an opportunity to save the Jewish people through the medium of Esther Malka. But the problem was at this time where we are that Esther herself didn't know that she was chosen. She didn't know all of this. Only Mordechai yada. Esther lo yada. Vayavo pasuk tet. Vayavo atach vayagid l'Esther devrei Mordechai. So the officer comes and he says to Esther, "Hey, guess what, Esther? You're our man. You're chosen. You're going to save the Jewish people." Esther, she just thought she was moving into a fancy house. You know, it's a kind of Trump apartment on the 50th floor of some building, and that nobody would bother her. And all she'd have to do every day is get dressed and then get undressed and go to sleep. And she says herself, as she says in the next pasuk, "Vayomer Esther la'atach v'tetzaveh Mordechai," and Esther says, "Tell this to Mordechai." He says, "I know something also." What do you think? You're the only one who knows something? Esther, Esther, know something. And what do I know? I know, Kol ish v'isha sheyavo l'melech l'chazer p'nimit l'melech I missed the line. Asher lo yikarei achad dato la'amid. If you go to see the king and he didn't call you, he didn't ask you to come, I mean, achad dato la'amid, the law is that you're going to be killed. Except for Ravad me'asher yoshit lo hamelech et shavit hazahav v'chaya v'ani lo negreit levad hamelech zo 30 yom. I mean, the king's not interested in me. As we said, the king's not interested in her beauty, not interested in her politics, not interested in her all. It's just important to the king that there's a queen. and that the queen doesn't cause any trouble. And why would Esther cause any trouble? She doesn't know what's going on at all. So she's not going to cause any trouble. So the king is happy, she's happy, but she hasn't been there. She hasn't even seen the king for 30 days. It's a romance. Pasuk Yud Bet. Pasuk Yud Bet. Vayagilu Mordechai et Divrei Esther. So Esther comes, she says, oh, you Mordechai, you think I don't know what's going on? I really don't know what's going on. She says, I'll tell you more things. I don't know. I've got a clue about what is going on. Vayomer Mordechai lashivet el Esther. So now Mordechai lets the cat out of the bag, so to speak. I don't know how the cat gets into the bag, but here we get him out of the bag. Here is al tidami ben avshech limaleit beit hamelech mikol haYehudim. I'm sorry. Pasuk Yud Bet. Vayagilu Mordechai et divrei Esther Yud Gimel. Vayomer Mordechai lashivet Esther al tidami ben avshech. Esther, don't think for a moment. Limaleit beit hamelech mikol haYehudim. Don't think that you're going to get away with it. You're going to hide out in the Trump Tower. No one will be able to find you. There's so many rooms, so many floors. They'll never find out who you are or where you are. Don't think that. So that means that, when somebody says, don't think, it means he thinks that that's exactly what she's thinking. What she's thinking is that maybe she's not really part of the Jewish people. Maybe her incarceration in the house of the king somehow means that she's not a player anymore. She's out of it. After all, Mordechai didn't tell her. Mordechai didn't tell her that it was all part of a divine plan, and that plan includes Esther, and she didn't know. She had no idea. Because if you are quiet at this time, if you don't act out your kind of fate, your shiksal, the thing that you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to do for the Jewish people, you will have lost the opportunity to be Esther Malka, to be recorded forever in the annals of our wise men. And you will cause the ultimate destruction for yourself and the house of your father. Miyodea here. Miyodea, I mean Mordechai Yodea. Who knows? Im la'eit kazot. Right, these group of psukim start pasuk aleph Mordechai Yada. Right, in other words, he somehow saw the hand of God in all of what was going on. And in the last pasuk of the page, or next to the last pasuk, he says to Esther, Miyodea, im leit kazot igat malchut. It may be that you are there because that's the way it's supposed to be. You are the one, in your hands, the salvation of the Jewish people lies. So when we read this, when we read these psukim, there's no doubt in our minds. There's no doubt in our minds that Mordechai is the hero, and Esther saves herself at the last moment by agreeing to follow the directives that Mordechai gives her. So that Mordechai turns out to be a very special person, a very special person. And yet, at the end of the Megillah, is this accusation that Mordechai has to live with for the rest of Jewish history. If you turn the page and you look at the last, next to the last section, or the last section of the quotes, Esther Perek Yud, right? You see Esther Perek Yud? So it's all happened already. Mordechai is the victor. He becomes Mishneh LaMelech, the second in command to the king. Esther is the queen. Haman is gone. The Jews have defended themselves appropriately. They wrote the Megillah, which they sent to Eretz Yisrael, to Anshe Knesset HaGdolah. All of that has happened already. And then Perek Yud, there are 3 psukim that summarize everything. So first, the summary about Achashverosh, Pasuk Aleph. Vayasem hamelech Achashverosh mas al haaretz le'iyeh hayam. That's the summary. For Achashverosh, that's all there is. That was the only question he had all the time. Will I be able to be the king of 127 Medinot? And what does that mean? What is the sign that you are in fact the king of 127 Medinot? You collect taxes from them. They send you their bounty. They honor you. That's what being a king means. So this pasuk, Perek Yud, pasuk Aleph says, he was a king. It all happened. It all settled down. Everything he wanted, he received. Okay? The Kol Ma'asav Ma'asei Takbol Gurato Parashat Gedulat Mordechai Asher Gidlo HaMelech Harem Ketuvim Al Sefer Divrei Yamim L'Malchei Badayu Parah. So that Mordechai plays a role in Achashverosh getting all of this bounty, all these taxes for the 127 nations, and that is written up, not Mordechai, the one who saw, or the one who knew, or the one who saved the Jewish people, not any of that, but Mordechai, who organized all of these of this world for Achashverosh. He organized the world, the economic world for Achashverosh, similar to, we don't have to talk about that now, but similar to, if you know, of Yosef. Yosef organized the economics for the Paro, king of Egypt, and Mordechai apparently organized the economics for Achashverosh, the king of Persia, and they were able to collect taxes from all the 127 nations. Now, summary, Pasuk Gimel of Mordechai, right? The final Pasuk about Mordechai, key. Is it key? Mordechai HaYehudi Mishneh LeMelech Achashverosh V'Gadol LaYehudim. Mordechai HaYehudi, right? Mordechai HaYehudi, he was somehow, he did not hide the fact that he was Mordechai HaYehudi, as Esther did hide the fact that she was Hadassah. But he was out in the open, Mordechai HaYehudi. Mordechai HaYehudi, Mishneh LeMelech Achashverosh V'Gadol LaYehudim. He was a great man of the Jewish people. And then this phrase, Ratzui L'Rov Echav. He found favor with most of his brethren. The last part of the pasuk, V'Dover Shalom L'Kol Zaro. He established, he spoke, he effused peace for all of his inheritors, all of his generations. Now look what it says in the Rashi. You see that Rashi, L'Rov Echav, right under that? L'Lo L'Kol Echav. Rov, the majority, but not Kol Echav. He did not find favor B'Kol Echav. He did not find favor B'Kol Echav. Why? Why not? Rashi. Shepershu Mimenu Miktzat Sanhedrin. Some of the members of the Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin is like, in those days, the Anshe Knesset Agdolah, the men of the Great Assembly. The Sanhedrin was first, and then Anshe Knesset Agdolah. But they were the ruling body for the Jewish people. They established the guidelines of behavior for the Jewish people. So these Pirshu Mimenu, some of them went away from him. They found fault with him. Lefi shena'asa karov lemalchut, Mordechai became very close to the king, to kingship, and v'haya batel mitalmudo, and he somehow was not able to maintain his strict schedule of Talmudic study. What do you think of that? It's what it says. It says in the Megillah. It says in the Megillah. It's not something that is invented, but the Megillah was written by Mordechai and Esther, and it says Ratzui L'Rov Echav. Most of the people thought that Mordechai was a good guy, but some of the people didn't. And Rashi said, you know who the some of the people were? They were the nation's greatest scholars, the nation's greatest Talmidei Chachamim, who thought that, that there was something problematic about the way Mordechai was willing to accept upon himself the standards of kingship. He was willing to take the job. He had a perfect life. He was a person who learned a lot of Torah and had tremendous insights that were able to save the Jews. Terrible tragedy. And finally, he succumbed to the offer of Achashverosh. Achashverosh was an idiot. I mean, he succumbed to his offer, and he put on the clothing and the trappings and when you get a job like that, well, it takes time. It takes time. You have like a lot of people come to you and say, "What should we do?" And you say nothing. That takes time. Everybody gets you for a minute. By the time all those people who you have nothing to say to get finished with their day, I mean, you're finished with your day. And so he gave up Talmud Torah. The implication is he didn't have to. It wasn't as though he saved the Jews becoming a Mishneh Lamelech. It's rather because he saved the Jews that Achashverosh put him in that spot so to get another neutral person on his staff, just like Esther was neutral. So he would also be neutral in the face of oppression. So it reminds me, the Megillat Esther says in one of the chapters called Tahara, Megillat Esther says, people, they can do things for pure motives. They just want to help. They want to do the right thing. And they really have that intention to do the right thing. And then suddenly, from the side, you don't even notice it, there sneaks in this idea of kavod, of honor, of you could get something. I mean, you're not doing it for that reason. Doing it for kavod, of course, is something that we're not so interested in. But you're not doing it for kavod. You're doing it for good reasons. You're doing it for the best reasons imaginable. But they kind of sneaks in the back afterwards that people say, "Oh, we'll make you this, we'll give you a dinner, and we'll put you on a podium, and make you at a pedestal, and we'll make a picture in your honor," and it sneaks in upon you. So that, the Megillat Esther says, is always a problem. Always a problem after the fact. After you've done the right thing, after you've been a good person, after you've done what the Torah wants you to do, you still have to avoid that kind of kavod. So I think what the Rashi means is this, that Mordechai wasn't getting anything for the Jewish people from the fact that he was the Mishneh Lamelech, right? It was a side benefit that Mordechai didn't need, because Mordechai his days were filled. He was learning all day, and he was teaching, and he was talking to people, and suddenly he was in a different world. He was the world of politics, the world of the politics of the kingdom. He was in the world of Persian economics. He was in a different world which he didn't really need. So first we learned that Mordechai was the outstanding person in the Megillah and in the Esther scroll. I mean, he was the person who did it. He saved the Jewish people, and of course Esther had a role, but she was not really aware of herself as Mordechai was. And finally, we saw that even a person who saves the people, who does as well as you could possibly imagine anybody could do, even that person has to beware of kavod, of unnecessary honor and being bestowed upon with all kinds of satisfying events. So that's the story. Those two things that we learned today is the beginning, right? The beginning of the study of Megillat Esther. Have a wonderful Purim.